Till now, we have seen the structure of solids, their calculations, various aspects regarding the structure of solids, what are the vacant spaces within. Now, based on the structure of solids only, their properties are determined. Remember, it is the structure of the solid which determines what kind of properties they should have. So today's topic is the properties of solid. There, mostly, we are going to talk about these two properties. One is electrical, one is magnetic. In the electrical properties, we are going to talk about conductors, then semiconductors, and C, insulators. Out of which this particular one, semiconductors, is the most important topic as per our syllabus, and to understand that we are going to take the help of band theory. So mainly our focus today will be on the electrical properties of solid and most importantly the semiconductors. So let us see one by one. So let us start discussing the electrical properties of solid. There, as we have said, that it is basically of three types. Three different properties are going to be discussed: conductors, semiconductors, and insulators. But to start off with, we are going to talk about the conductors. Now, what is a conductor? Conductors are those type of solids which allows the passage of electricity to flow through it. That means it will allow the passage of electricity to flow through it. Means it can carry the electricity. So it is also of two types. One is metallic conductor, another is electrical conductor, or you can say electrolytic conductor. So what are these two? See, in case of metallic conductors, if I give you the example, you will understand. Metals like copper, silver, etc. What it can do is, metals are having free electrons. So due to those free electrons, it can allow the current to flow through. Because free electrons can move, and as we know, the movement of the electricity will be opposite to the direction of the electrons. So first is the metallic conductor. Remember, whenever the metallic conductor allows the passage of electricity to flow through it, it does not undergo any chemical change. It doesn't undergo any chemical change. Whereas in case of electrolytic conductors, what happens? Example will be like NaCl solution in this case. NaCl solution or any salt solution. What happens is, whenever you pass the electricity, it dissociates into Na plus and Cl minus. These ions will now can carry the electrons, so can carry the electricity. So here, whenever electricity is passed, it undergoes chemical change. This chemical change happens, then only it can allow the electricity to flow through it. Otherwise, the electricity won't flow through it. So these are the mainly two difference among the conductors. One is metallic conductor, another is electrolytic conductor. In the same manner, we are going to talk about the insulators here. In our previous designation, we have given it C. So here I am writing it B, no issues. So insulators. Just the opposite one, as we know, it insulates, it doesn't allow. So solids which does not allow the passage of electricity to flow through it. So we have seen just two opposite cases. One is conductor, one is insulator. Conductors, we have seen two different type of conductors, but in case of insulators, since it doesn't allow the electricity to flow through, there is no need of classification. Now let us talk about the semiconductors. Before that, if we measure the conductivities of conductors, for conductor it is 10 to the power 4 to 10 to the power 7 ohm inverse meter inverse. And for insulators, although insulators practically do not carry the electricity, but still if you measure the value, it will come around 10 to the power minus 10 to 10 to the power minus 20 ohm inverse meter inverse. So from this value itself, you can see these are the two opposite values almost. So in case of semiconductors, it is just the in between scenario of conductors and insulators, because its conductivity varies between 10 to the power minus 6 to 10 to the power 4 ohm inverse meter inverse. You can see 10 to the power minus 6, that means it is having its lower limit is having more capability than insulators, and its higher limit is having less capability than conductors. So this is called semiconductor. How it is formed? To understand that, we have to understand a theory called band theory. So let us understand the band theory. To understand the bonding and the conductivity, we have to understand band theory. And this will give you an idea why a particular metal is insulator, why a particular, not only metal, why a particular solid is insulator, why a particular solid is conductor, and why it is semiconductor. So we will explain it like with the help of, it is just an elaborated version of molecular orbital theory. So molecular orbital theory is basically giving rise to band theory. What we have seen, suppose we take lithium. Lithium means it is 1s2, 2s1. From the molecular orbital theory, we know that this 2s1 electron is responsible for bonding. How it is done? Let us draw it here. 2s1. So 1 2s1 on this side, 1 2s1 on this side. So 2 2s1 of lithium has been drawn. This is the energy profile diagram. Energy has been plotted. So each are having one electron. Now these two will combine to give one anti-bonding and one bonding. So now this is how it is. Now where are the electrons? Two electrons will occupy the bonding orbital. So this is bonding orbital and this is anti-bonding orbital. So in the anti-bonding orbital there are no electrons. Similarly, if we imagine a scenario like this, here, suppose we take 4 lithium atoms. So 4 lithium atoms on this side, 4 lithium atoms on this side. So there will be, carefully see, 4 very closely associated 2s electrons. Here also there will be very closely associated 2s orbitals, not electrons, orbitals, sorry. And they will have 4 bonding orbital. Similarly, they will have 4 anti-bonding orbital also. I hope I have made it clear. These will be very close because I cannot draw it one above another. They are actually having very close energy levels, almost same energy levels. So each one will have 1 electron here. So there are 8 electrons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what we can see, that since there are 4 lithium atoms, they are very closely associated in the bonding orbitals and in anti-bonding orbitals also. If there are n number of electrons and if there are n number of lithium atoms, then what happens? Here, you see, they are very close. So many orbitals. Here also, so many orbitals. N number of orbitals. They are very close to each other, close proximity. So the bonding orbital will be like this. And similarly, if I draw the anti-bonding orbital with red, it will be like this. Now, this close proximity will give rise to these bands. This is called the band. This one. This is called the band. This is the energy which has been plotted. This is called the band. And between them there is a gap. If there are large number of electrons, which it should be, all the electrons should be here only. Electrons will be here. And here there are no electrons. So where the electrons will stay, that is called the valence band. Not bond, it is band. And where there are no electrons, it is called conduction band. So do write it down. So just to repeat the scenario, it is basically an extended version of the molecular orbital theory. First I have drawn 4. There also you can see they are coming very close to each other, forming kind of band, but since there were only 4, so it is not very close to each other, we can still distinguish. But when we have considered n number of atomic orbitals and n number of atoms, so there will be n number of atomic orbitals. So there will be a band formed in the bonding orbitals and there will be a band formed for the anti-bonding orbitals. This is called the valence band and this is called the conduction band. So the gap between them is called the forbidden zone. Now, Let us draw three diagrams very close to each other. In case of conductors, the scenario will be like this. These are the valence band rather. And here is the conduction band. So all the electrons which is present in the valence band can travel very easily. Electrons can easily transfer. So if the electrons can transfer due to the lesser energy gap, practically there is no gap between the valence band and the conduction band. So that is why it is called the conductor. On the other hand, in case of insulator, just the opposite scenario happens. The gap is so high between the valence band and the conduction band. This is the huge gap. Forbidden zone is huge. So the electrons cannot travel. So if the electrons cannot travel, electricity will also not be flowing. That is why it is the case of insulator. And in case of semiconductors, it is just in between. There is a gap, but it's not so huge. So this is the scenario for the insulator. There is definitely a gap. It is not as close or not in touch with each other like the case of conductors. So gap is intermediate. Electrons can travel, and this is the scenario. This is called, once again, intermediate forbidden zone. Forbidden. So this is called semiconductor. So simultaneously I have drawn three of them. You can compare. This is what band theory suggests. According to this theory, we have understood what is the structural explanation of the semiconductor, conductor as well as insulator. In what case, due to what scenario the electrons can transfer or cannot transfer. And we have seen this special case of semiconductor also. Now let us see how the semiconductors are prepared, because nowadays all the microchips, all the intelligence devices that we see, in most of the cases in the electronic devices, the semiconductors are having huge use. Whatever electronic devices that we use nowadays, be it mobiles or laptops, the semiconductors are there. So we have to understand how it is formed. It is due to the number of electrons that the metals have and the kind of electron transfer that it can take place from the valence band to the conduction band. So now we are going to talk about semiconductors. Semiconductors are also of two types. Intrinsic and extrinsic. In case of intrinsic semiconductors, let us draw a structure. Suppose I am drawing a structure of silicon. We know it belongs to group 14, so it is having 4 electrons in its outermost shell as per the class 10 concept, and it is having NS2 NP2 configuration, so it will form 4 bonds. So this is how the silicon network structure will look like. Everywhere the electron is sufficient, the bond has been formed. Silicon, germanium, this kind of elements, they are having very poor conduction of electricity because all the electrons here has been bonded. There are no free electrons. But what happens if you give excess energy? If excess energy is being supplied, then what happens? One of the bonds can rupture, there can be generation of free electrons, and now these electrons can help, these electrons can travel. So what are we giving? We are giving energy, the bond is being ruptured, bond is being broken, free electrons are being forcefully generated, forcefully is very important word, then only it can have the free electrons which can move around, so it can carry electricity. But this is a very difficult case. It's a very difficult scenario. So, to make it very simple, what we do is, we use doping, and which gives rise to the formation of extrinsic semiconductor. What is doping? We actually induce, we actually include or inject something, some other element from outside into this structure so that we get our desired result. This is called doping. In the sports, you must have heard this term doping. Various athletes, various famous athletes has been removed from their profession, has been banned from their profession because of taking some drugs which will enable them to perform better. So that is called doping. You must have heard about the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA. So this doping is a term which is used in various ways. In chemistry, in this particular case, doping means we are actually injecting something from outside which will allow this particular structure to act in the desired way. What is the desired way? I want this to carry the electricity, and normally the scenario is the bonds are so tightly packed, the network structure is so good that it won't be generating the free electrons. Only I have to give excess heat. So there should be a better process to generate the semiconductors, and that is doping. So let us do that. So we know that group 13, 14 and 15, boron, aluminium, gallium, indium, here it is carbon, silicon, germanium, and here it is nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic. Suppose I take silicon structure or germanium structure for an example. So I draw germanium structure. It is also having the network-like structure. Like this. Here, if I take indium, if I remove one of the germanium and if I take indium here, what will be the scenario now? Germanium, so what will be the scenario of these bonds? Germanium can give rise to 4 electrons, whereas indium belongs to group 13 will only give rise to 3 electrons, 3 valence electrons. So this will give rise to 7 electrons. So it needs one more excess electron. One excess electrons because it is electron deficient. So it is called electron deficiency. What happens is when indium is placed here, in order to form the 4 bonds, there will be some places, suppose this one, where electron deficiency will be generated, which otherwise, if it was germanium, would have been occupied by electrons. But there is a less number of electrons, so somewhere in this bond there will be electron deficiency. And to make it up, what happens? Electrons from nearby, suppose electrons from nearby, they will try to fill this gap. If these electrons will try to fill this electron deficiency, the electron deficiency will shift here, then here, then here. So what happens? Due to a localized electron deficiency and due to fill it up, due to neutralization, due to the process of neutralization, the electron deficiency actually spreads out throughout the structure. So electron deficiency spreads, and throughout the structure the electron deficiency will find. In the meantime, what is happening? To neutralize this deficiency, electrons are moving, and we know if the electrons can move, the electricity will also be carried. So that is how the electricity will be carried, and it will show some kind of conductivity. As I have shown you, it is in between 10 to the power minus 6 to 10 to the power 4, and as a result of it, it is a semiconductor. And due to the give rise of this positivity, we call it positive holes. This type of semiconductors are called p-type. P-type semiconductor. So when p-type happens, when with group 14, group 13 combines, very easy, it is 4 plus 3, which is 7, so 8, which is, you need more electrons. So we take group 14, we take group 13, it becomes 7, we need one more electron. That is why it is p-type. So this is not the only example, similarly other examples can also be given. Now let us see the opposite type. If I take same germanium here, same structure, absolutely same, group 14, so there are 4 valence electrons, 4 covalent bonds, very stable bonds. Now in this network structure, suppose I remove this one, this time by arsenic. Arsenic, as we know, belongs to group 15, so arsenic carries 5 electrons, whereas germanium carries how many? It carries 4 electrons. So it gives rise to in total 9 electrons. So 9 electron means 8 electron plus 1 extra electron. Now this electron, when forming this covalent bond, somewhere there will be this excess electron. What will be the fate of this electron? As you know, it's a free electron, it is not participating in the bonding, it is an excess electron, so it can move around in the various directions. This free electron will help the electricity to carry, and that is how this will act as a semiconductor. And because of the presence of excess electron, electron stands for negativity, so it is called N-type. So very simple. Although it looks little bit complicated, but it is very simple. Group 14 and group 13, 4 plus 3, 7. 7 means 1 extra you need. That means extra electron you need. That means you have electron deficiency. So you are p-type. If it is 14 and 15, so 5 plus 4, 9. 8 plus 1, 9. That means extra electron you already have. That means it is n-type. So that is how p-type and n-type has been distinguished. You have to, it will be much better if you draw the diagram, write it down properly, and while explaining also you draw it. So this is how we describe the semiconductors.